You're listening to Corp, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan.
Sharan, we've been speaking about branding, marketing, brands for quite some time now, and our listeners would tend to believe that we seem to have some kind of a code or some kind of a science for creating success in this field. Both of us know that branding, marketing is far from being a perfect science, and there's a reason why a lot of brands fail. Global success rate for innovation at best is about 8.5-9%, which means 91% innovations do fail.
After all the work that's put in.
Correct. And therefore, I was intrigued by this topic that you picked up today. Why don't you introduce the topic to all of us and let's dive deeper into it?
So this is something, like you said, I'm asked why brands ever fail, because when people say you make it sound so simple and logical. If it is so simple and logical, why do brands fail? So this is more a caveat for me to my clients, saying just because you've done a brand workshop with me or I've consulted with you doesn't mean your business or your brand will not fail. This is my insurance podcast. This is to list down 7 reasons why brands fail.
If I may, that this is Sharan protecting his backside by saying, despite the fact that I have worked with your brand, you might still fail, but don't blame me for it. I'm giving you a framework for failure also.
Exactly.
What's the first one?
This is about why brands fail. I'm not going into the point of why businesses fail. And I've listed 7 because 7 is what came to mind. And I think you and I sit together, we'll come up with even 20 reasons why brands can fail. But these 7 come to mind because I think they are the most commonly observed reasons why brands fail, despite all the efforts put into creating them. First one is the most obvious. Poor delivery. A brand is as good as a promise you make. And if you do not keep the promise, it is bound to fail, because a good brand or a good marketing exercise can get people to try your product or your service. But if that does not keep up to the promise that you've made or does not deliver to the ask of the consumer, the expectations of the consumer, you're doomed. There's nothing that's going to help a failed product or a failed service, no matter how well you market it. You can get trials, but you will never get repeats. So the other question, the contrary one to this is, if I do a good job, will I get known as fast? No, you will not. And that's the reality of life. Bad news spreads a lot faster than good news does. Most of us leave reviews on Amazon only when we are unhappy. Very few of us actually leave reviews when we are happy with the product. So we are tuned that way. The moment you cannot fulfill the promise you're making, the brand has no chance of survival. One recent example is a very widely panned brand called White Hat Junior. I know they got acquired, but the reputation that they built in the market, they made great promises about their children's future and how it was 21st century skills and all of it. But when it came down to actual delivery, they were recruiting people who had no idea what coding was. And once parents discovered this, everything hit the fan. The failed PR campaigns did more to dissuade business than anything else did for them, because consumers were reacting to it. Consumers, once the news of how they were hiring their teachers came to light, people started joking about the brand, no matter what you did to save it. I don't think people trust that brand too much anymore. Even if they've reformed, even if they've kind of corrected all the flaws, it's difficult to recover a brand like that.
On the positive side, something as simple as Domino's 30-minute delivery is something that they have really advertised and delivered on more often than not.
And in fact, now they don't even have to say it's 30 minutes. And they still are the king of pizza deliveries in India. They came in and beat such a strong brand like Pizza Hut, which was actually ruling the roost at that time, right, in India.
So that sounds like a fair one. What's the second one on the list?
Second one is something that everybody is talking about today, which is the product market fit. A lot of businesses do not do research, especially the emerging businesses. And a very, very popular shortcut is to copy something that's working in another market, preferably the West, and to just copy it for the local market. Now, there are cultural references, there are lifestyle references, the relevance of the product or service in India. These things are completely ignored. So I remember there was this car cleaning service aggregator. I'm like, why? My security guard has a group of boys who washes cars every morning. And what can get more efficient than that? There are things that probably work very well in the West, but just have no traction in India because we've evolved so differently. And people don't take that into consideration. I do blame them for not doing the research, but they are so ambitious that they just want to move a lot faster. If they can pause a little bit, then they can actually get it right. Modify it. All it requires, any idea you take from the West also, if you can modify it to the core to understand what problem it is solving for, then you have a business. You can't really blame the emerging businesses because even the big ones make the same mistake. See what's happening to Netflix, right? They've come into India expecting India to behave the way the Western markets do. Indians don't value time. Indians are willing to trade time for money any day. I'd rather save my 100 rupees and watch your ads than spend that money and skip these ads. Now, Netflix did not expect that at all from India. And suddenly when growth hits a standstill and the pricing is not set for India, now they come around to start advertising and to lower the subscription cost. That is a product market fit.
Possibly. I would in fact also say, Sharan, that one more thing that is not working for Netflix is their content.
Yes.
I think some of the other players like Hotstar and Amazon Prime seem to have a better suited content. For Netflix, it seems that they think India is South Bombay. That's the only, India they understand. They have started now investing into content from the hinterland. They're way, way away from, getting into the kind of things that others seem to have already done thus far.
Absolutely. It all boils down to product market fit, right? Because if we keep telling each other in marketing that there's no one India. Every state reacts so differently to everything we do. And for an international brand to come in assuming this is what India is going to be and this is what I'm going to do to India, it just doesn't cut it. And the same way, what works in India need not work at another place. Being aware of the local market requirements and catering your service or your product to the local sensibilities and making it relevant to them is very important. No matter how strong a brand you build, if this is not matching up to your consumers' requirements, then of course you're going to fail.
There is no better example of this kind of a success than Mekalu Tikki Burger.
Exactly. I think they even tried a masala dosa burger, right? Somewhere in the middle.
I don't know. For a South Indian like you, that must be sacrilege. But I know for sure that Mekalu Tikki Burger is the single largest selling SKU in India.
Absolutely. That's perfect product market fit.
Yes. Okay, excellent. So your next one, I think, Sharan, the next one that I can read on your list is something which is particularly relevant these days.
It's been relevant not just these days, forever, right?
Oh, okay.
The time you and I started also, this is the same battle.
Yeah.
We keep fighting and the same sin we keep committing also. Buying sales. Because there's this saying, right? Top line is vanity, bottom line is sanity, cash flow is reality. People miss this very often. And people chase the top line. The problem with chasing top line is that when you incentivize sales so much, at the end of the day, it's going to be a short-term impact. The moment you withdraw your inputs, your sales are going to fall back down, whatever discount you give. And the uplift you get in your sales because of the discounting you're doing is not really a reflection of how well your business is going to do. You can get momentary satisfaction, but it's one, eroding profit. Two, it's actually taking away sales from the future also. So these are things that people need to be careful, and especially in this e-commerce-led D2C world, people are chasing growth. But how are they chasing growth? Are you spending blindly in customer acquisition without understanding the long-term feasibility? And what happens is you end up entering a vicious circle that automatically shifts focus from brand building to sales buying. All the money you could have invested in building a brand is now going to discount to people. Now, I'm not saying discounts are wrong. It's about where discounts are communicated. What are you using the discounts for? No matter how premium a brand you're looking to build, if your first point of communication to your consumer is, say, 20% off, you are a discount brand. You cannot save yourself from becoming a discount brand. You will no longer be a premium brand. However, if the discount is communicated at the point of checkout, it can serve as a great conversion tool. But applying this logic blindly, saying, because I communicated discount, my conversion happened. So I want to communicate this discount everywhere and give out my coupons for free. That is where you lose track. There was this e-com shop I landed on yesterday. It would not even show me the product I was going to buy, but was insisting on giving me a 20% discount coupon. And I could not even handle the page. It completely blocked everything that was on the website, insisting on giving me the discount even before I know if I was ever going to shop there.
Yeah, I think I've read this on your LinkedIn post.
Yeah, that is buying sales, right? That's not going to get you any business. So a very good example of this actually is from a little while ago. Everybody knows what happened to Snapdeal with discounts. The personal story. This was 2015, I think, when there was this new iPhone that had launched. And as usual, I was looking for the best deal I could get on the iPhone. The best deal I found was on Snapdeal, which was, I think the iPhone at that time was about 52,000 rupees, and Snapdeal was selling it for 38,000. I ordered it. I wasn't sure if it was a new phone or not. I double checked it. I did everything. I made sure it is a new phone, and I bought it. It arrived. The invoice in the pack actually said 52,000. There's a 14,000 rupee difference between the invoice price and the price I paid. So somebody's paying that money, or at least some of it. But the things, I never went back to Snapdeal after that. So what does Snapdeal gain by giving me that discount? And that is what's happening today with a lot of the e-com brands. I know they are under pressure to give discounts by the retailers, but to what end? It doesn't really serve a purpose.
No, that makes sense. And I think it should be of relevance to a lot of people who are listening to us today.
You're listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands. Your hosts are Sudeep Chawla, marketing practitioner, business leader, and educator to advertising and marketing professionals, and Sharavana Raghavan of Vitriol Innovations, consultants to consumer-facing brands and businesses. For more information, go to copcast.net. If you find this podcast helpful, please help us by telling your friends and rating us.
So we spoke about poor delivery, we spoke about product market fit, and we spoke about buying sales. Let's move to the next one.
Next one is lack of direction. In most organizations, even in startups, if the brand building is left to the marketing team, it is not good news. The marketing team is not responsible for building the brand. At best, they're responsible for the marketing activities on the brand. Brand building is a collective organization responsibility. If that cannot be held together by the leadership, then there's no way the brand's going to succeed. If the leadership thinks of brand building as a necessary evil, but remains focused just on sales, then they're never going to go anywhere, no matter how big a brand they build. Now, the founders really need to have a long-term vision on what they want to accomplish. If that is not done, there is no way anybody below them is going to take up that responsibility. And nothing will be followed through on, especially on the brand. And you eventually become a brand that is price chasing to find the lowest bidder. You will eventually die out. And this is an example that you'd find all over this country. Because as business people in India, a lot of us are focused on the danda, as in we want everything here now, money in, money or profit made. And we are more process driven and not necessarily a long-term brand vision driven.
For example, if you go into wholesale markets anytime, you will find dime a dozen spices and condiments seller.
Right.
Yeah, with open sacks of spices lying around them. And the only thing that they compete on vis-a-vis others is rate. That's the only thing that they can offer. While they talk about quality, there is no way they're able to demonstrate quality, and their product looks the same as everybody else's. Now in this market, if one can think about a brand which was the OG, as they call it, of spices, is MDH. Yeah, now this guy seems to have created an empire, thousands of crores, just out of branding ordinary spices that you would possibly otherwise get in any of your wholesale markets.
Exactly.
So I think that's an example of somebody who has had the vision, invested ahead in terms of creating a brand, and then therefore has reaped rewards for doing that.
Absolutely. You'd find so many local brands in India, right? Which locally are so famous and so revered, but they never really leave that local market.
I was talking to you about this bakery that I've seen in Gurgaon called Harish Bakery. Now, it is just like any other bakery that you find, any other sweet shop that you find. I am from Haryana, so I can quote so many of them from different parts of Haryana. But you find that most of these are confined to their own towns, and therefore they're very happy that they have almost about 70-80% market share in that particular town, and everybody in the town swears by them, but they don't dream beyond it. Now, this Harish Bakery, I was quite amazed to see when I went to this shop. Obviously, it's a big one. It is multi-story shop, and they clear out their basement section when it comes to Diwali, because they have their own packs, etc., lined up there. Plus, they used to buy a lot of Cadbury when I used to visit them as part of my sales stint. And that is when I came across them for the first time. But when I traveled to various other territories, to slightly more smaller towns in Haryana and UP, I found that their packs were retailing in those towns as well. So not only has this guy built a reputation for himself in that particular town, but he has invested into creating packaging as well as travelable packs of dry fruits, sweets, etc., which can be retailed in other towns. He has taken the pains to appoint distributors. This requires upfront investment, and more than investment, it requires thought.
And how many people would have told him when he's making the investment, why bother? Why spend so much money?
Yeah. Let's get to next one, where you talk about coordination. What kind of coordination are we talking about, Sharan?
So this can sound very similar to the lack of direction, but no matter how great a brand you've envisioned, you set in place to kind of take over the market, no matter how right you position it, it eventually comes down to execution at the point of sale. It's not always fun, right? It's about saying the same thing over and over again, keeping it consistent. People tend to over message too to democratize marketing, right? So everybody, sales team wants to say something, marketing team wants to say something, the local ASM wants to say something, the local wholesaler wants to say something, so everybody's message is put into the mix. Now, this happens because not everybody's aligned to the same vision of the brand. Each one's looking to save or rather go after their key objectives, which could, in most cases, is the short-term objective. If the brand values or the brand vision is not communicated to the entire organization and everybody's not pulling in the same direction, then there's no way the brand is ever going to even see the light of day. For this, there was a recent example I worked on. One of my clients is in the biscuit business. He has the greatest machinery imported from Germany and put up the latest technology in his factory. He's been launching innovation after innovation for the last 6 months, and his sales have just not gone up. I went in to realize the sales team had no idea what the marketing team was looking to build. They did not even know there was a new machine in the factory. They said, they were putting up some machine in the factory. I don't know what that is for. I think it's for these biscuits only. And there was no clear message going from marketing to the sales team to tell them why certain innovations are being done and where they are to be distributed. So what is happening was, these were high-end premium biscuits that were being made, but were being distributed in the local kirana stores instead of the high-end supermarkets and grocers. And obviously, there was no offtake. And what happens in the small grocers, the moment the stock you've loaded them with is not selling, what is selling is stopped from being bought because you've blocked their money. And entire sales was a complete plateau. It just wasn't moving because there was just no communication of why a certain product is being launched and where it should be launched. Simple as that. This is how a lot of brands get into trouble, because a lot of people think it's not important for everybody in the system to know everything. While that could be right, I go back to the previous point I made also to say a brand is built by the organization, not just by one team. And this lack of coordination can be very detrimental and actually cost you the money you invested in all that you're looking to build. The next one, though, is something I like to call the SOS, which is the shiny object syndrome. In most businesses, there is always something new happening, something that looks glamorous, more attractive, sometimes maybe even easier than what you're doing right now. While one should be open to always try something new, that cannot come at the expense of what is working for you currently. One of my bosses told me, agility does not mean doing the wrong thing quickly. I think a lot of people fall into that trap, wanting to do the wrong thing very fast and say, I am agile. No, you can take your time. When things that aren't as clear, you should take your time. A lot of people go after the new things. So instead of reacting to everything new that comes your way, it's important to understand it and see how it will apply to your brand and how it will fit into your consumer's journey. Who are you going after? Why does it work? You need to set the right expectations and make the right investments. So this right expectations and right investments are very subjective. I know it can vary from business to business. If you're clear about how you want it to impact your business and you understand the new phenomenon thoroughly, then it's okay to make the investment. But very often people jump at it without knowing how to navigate the space. And I cannot blame just the emerging businesses here, because the example that comes to mind for me the most is Tata Neu. I was amazed at how fast they came up with the branding in the IPL, and they got the communication. You could have different views on how the communication was done. But the app itself was a bit of a disaster. And nobody in-house apparently complained about the app before it was released. And this is Tata who we're talking about. I think after having made the acquisitions they did in the digital space, they were just enamored about wanting to launch the super app. They did not see how their brands were going to play together. For example, Taj is such a premium brand. And the Taj inner circle points were being traded for the new app ka points. Now, while the new super app could become premium in the future, I'm not sure it's still as premium as the Taj brand is. And that's where I think they were missing the bus a bit. When the app wasn't great, the brands were not being aggregated together. I think they'll resolve it very soon. But yeah, if Tata can make this mistake, you can't really blame the emerging businesses for trying to do this.
Yeah, true. In fact, I read in Economic Times some time back, they were aiming at around 200 million GS in their gross merchandise value, GMV. 200 million GMV per month, dollars, is what they were looking at.
Okay.
In their first 2 months, they had clocked an average of about 120.
Okay.
So they were short of their own internal target. And again, people have started questioning whether it has lived up to its initial hype, because it was, built up using the IPL. That was a very, very expensive investment from them.
Right. I think it could have been done better if they had done it right, taken the time with it, understood each of the brand individually. I think everybody's got their own weaknesses for wanting to do things fast.
Okay, so this possibly was the sixth one.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what's the last one that rounds up the list?
Last one that rounds up the list is for everybody, actually. In fact, this applies more to the larger businesses than the small, because this is when people take the eye off the ball, especially when in a house of brands setup, one brand that's doing well tends to take precedence over every other brand in the market, in the portfolio. The whole idea of people building a house of brands is that the sum will be greater than the parts. But if an underperforming brand is not persisted with because it's not performing as well as the main brand in the system, then that brand will fail because it's not getting the right support. There will be times when even a good brand will go through a bad patch, and there could be trends that the brand is falling into. There could be a refresh that's required. But if it isn't supported through the lean patch, people will miss out on building something great. I think every brand that even you and I have worked on has gone through a bad patch at some point in time. And figuring out ways there comes because you look at those brands individually, look at their reason to survive and the right to win, and you build them up to succeed. If that focus is not there and you're looking to gain everything from the ones that are already working, that in fact becomes a bit of a shortcut. The best example for this actually is GSK with Horlicks. I'm sure you know the story better than I do, so why don't you tell us about what happened to Moldova and Viva?
No, I think they had in their mind to take away some of their competitors who were holding them back from gaining share in specific geographies. They had bought over these two brands called Moldova and Viva. Yeah, and Viva was particularly big in East. Moldova was big in North, specifically in Punjab. While I think Viva died its own natural death, and it was to Horlicks' advantage because Horlicks was fairly big in East and South, them being milk deficient geographies. I think they were not able to capitalize on their purchase of Moldova. They possibly tried to focus too much on Horlicks and did not strengthen or at least leverage what Moldova stood for.
And possibly because Moldova wasn't as easy to sell or wasn't as well performing in the internal terms as Horlicks was. Right?
Maybe the possible explanation also could be that Horlicks started off as a chemist brand and slowly made its way into confectionery and other, general grocer channel. Moldova and Horlicks started the other way around. They were more grocery brands which made its way into chemist channel. Moldova's distribution at that point in time did not fit the kind of structure that Horlicks had in its own mind. Moldova didn't survive, and neither was Horlicks able to gain out of that acquisition or gain any share in Punjab, and Bonvita actually took it away from them. So it's another example of possibly a company focusing too much on its mother brand or the parent brand, not really investing into another one, which possibly could have been a great flanker or in the long run could have given them significant share in a particular market.
Exactly. I think the last 2 points of SOS and eye of the ball, I think are applicable to businesses of any size for that matter.
So if you ask me, Sharan, I think all of them are. Many big companies have been guilty of not really following through all of their promises all the time. And hence you will find that brands launched by big companies also fail.
Absolutely.
But I love this, this list of 7 reasons or 7 deadly sins, as one might call it.
that should have been the topic of this podcast.
Yes, I just thought about it. So I just thought of it. But 7 deadly sins that you spoke about. So we spoke about poor delivery, not being able to deliver on your brand promises, product market fit, the need to customize, need to understand the cultural context or the lifestyle context. Number 3 is focusing too much on buying sales by discounting or spending too much money on customer acquisition without necessarily building a brand. 4th is lack of direction, where we spoke about the fact that too often business owners are focused only on sales and therefore don't spend sufficient time, energy behind marketing and building a brand. We spoke about lack of coordination, where we, spoke about the fact that too often, the sales team doesn't even know why a brand is being launched or what is the strategic reason for a company going in a certain direction. The 6th one, famously called the SOS, which is shiny object syndrome, is where a company sees too many new directions, gets infatuated by something new and runs in that direction without necessarily looking at all the strategic consequences and thereby missing the bus. And last but not the least is eye of the ball, where a company invests behind what is working well and does not invest behind something else which has kind of had a little bit of a fall or is going through a tough time, letting that opportunity slip, not leveraging the kind of potential that it had. seven deadly sins of brand building. Excellent. So that I think is a great list, Sharan, and it rounds off our discussion for today. Thank you really for sharing this list with all of us. Hopefully it'll help a lot of our listeners out there.
Thank you, Sudeep.
Thank you for listening to COB, Conversations on the Business of Brands with Sudeep Chawla and Sharavana Raghavan. Subscribe and learn more at cobcast.net. That's COBBCAST.net.